It was during the work on Alien Covenant that a second Alien project rose up to offer a fan-enticing alternative to Ridley Scott's direction, and it was thanks to a hit South African film called District 9 by Neil Blomkamp. One secret fan of the film was Sigourney Weaver. She thought District 9 was amazing, and secretly wished that she could work with Blomkamp on something, but didn't even bother to tell her agent about it because she figured they just moved in far too different circles. But then the stars aligned, and she was actually offered a small role in Blomkamp's robot story, Chappie. She loved the story and had a great time working with Blomkamp on it, unaware that he was a fan of her work with Alien. While working on Chappie, he took the time to ask Weaver what she thought about the direction the Alien series went, and she admitted that after Aliens, she was disappointed with everything. The artistic intent of the time faded with more than 2 decades of distance, that instead of Alien 3 taking Ripley to a place where her arc should end, it was just empty and disappointing. And she agreed that in retrospect, killing off Newton Hicks had been grossly unkind to the fans who emotionally connected with those characters in Aliens, and to Michael Biehn, who wanted to continue with the series. All told, even leaving aside the studio and Brandywine's interference, Alien 3 just wasn't where things should have gone for any of the characters involved in her view. Listening to her talk about it all, Blomkamp found speaking to Weaver like blowing on hot embers until they burst into flame. The more they talked, the more he was inspired, both on what a story could be and why such a story deserved to be made. A time came when he asked her, "Would you object if I started exploring possibilities to give Ripley a new ending?" Weaver had previously made clear that she wouldn't get involved again with Ripley unless Ridley Scott or James Cameron were involved. But after talking with Blomkamp and feeling how he seemed to be on the same wavelength as her, she gave him permission to reimagine the fate of Ripley. Right before the release of Chappie, Blomkamp threw a stone that got an avalanche rolling. At the start of 2015, he posted something from his personal files labeled Alien Xeno, a series of concept art pieces that depicted Ellen Ripley and Corporal Hicks facing aliens inside a Weyland-Yutani facility. While he publicly stated it was artwork he wanted to share just for fun, secretly, he wished that this was the next film that could be made. The art spread across the web, thrilling fans who'd been disappointed with the lack of the classic monster in Prometheus, with what looked like exactly what they'd been hoping to get from a Ridley Scott return to the film. Well, Fox had been all for Scott bringing the monster back in Covenant. Try to keep this property alive, that was their view. This explosive viral reaction to this artwork was exactly the kind of thing that they'd been wanting to get for the property. Fox executives contacted Blomkamp and discussed his ideas, and on February 18, despite Alien Covenant still being in pre-production, he announced that Alien 5, the working title, had been greenlit. Weaver was thrilled and waited with bated breath to see if it would live up to what she'd hoped a true Alien resurrection would look like. Nostalgia sequels had become more frequent in the teens and 20s of the 21st century. Blade Runner, Top Gun, Coming to America, The Thing, and Tron being obvious examples of films that seemed complete, but nevertheless had the interest to see the story continue, for good or for bad. But in some cases, sequels had come and come with diminishing returns. Most famously was Superman, whose Superman 2 was just as strong as the first, but then followed by 2 disappointing films plus tie-in film Supergirl. A nostalgia sequel in such cases has the problem of baggage, things having gone wrong that gets in the way of continuing. Thus is born the legacy sequel, in this case, Superman Returns. While it hadn't reached the heights that everyone involved had hoped for, Superman Returns was a commercial success and did do well enough with critics to be respectable. In fact, it was only thanks to a number of bad timing delays that kept it from getting a sequel of its own. It was a great demonstration that legacy sequels could work. It certainly wasn't the first. Halloween H2O had been a commercial success, serving as a sequel to Halloween 2. Even Highlander 3 did better than its predecessor, though not by much, leading to the tongue-in-cheek fan comment, "There should have been only one." But Candyman, Ghostbusters, and Terminator would likewise disregard some or all sequels to continue, the final one being ironic given the death of John Connor, written by James Cameron, who had blasted Alien 3 for killing Hicks and Newt. Alien 5 being a legacy sequel to Aliens was not only precedented, it was in good company and well-timed. 20th Century Fox believed that this had a strong chance to turn Alien back into a dependable tentpole series. That's what they wanted. But there was just one problem. They were, as discussed, working to keep a strong relationship with Ridley Scott, and greenlighting a completely different Alien project while he was actively working on his risked sending the message that he no longer had their confidence. The thing about Scott and Blomkamp was that both were working in a way that could coexist. Scott was interested in the before, Blomkamp in the after. This too wasn't unprecedented. Disney had bought Marvel partly on the strength of its cinematic universe, a concept that other studios were hoping to emulate at this time. And Disney was releasing its first new Star Wars film as a sequel and its second Star Wars film as a prequel, The Force Awakens and Rogue One, respectively. The move seemed to be, in its moment, ideal if they could just avoid offending their star director. The solution, Fox decided, was essentially wrap up the potential insult in flattery. They asked Ridley Scott to be the producer of Alien 5, since clearly he was the master after all. He the one with the vision and experience to ensure that Alien 5 fits snugly with the universe that he was shaping. Scott, it should be noted, was already up to his neck not only with pre-production on Covenant, but post-production on The Martian, meaning he was also getting things together to go on promotion tours to be ready to speak on both those projects as needed. So in that moment, Scott basically took the job with a, "yeah, fine." Ridley Scott's public statements indicate his view of his role, saying in The Independent after Covenant's release, "I had this thing to bring the franchise back. I'd literally ignited this thing." His remarks, while clearly containing what he felt was deserved pride for bringing Alien back from where the crossover films had left it, could be interpreted in two different ways. One, and this was likely his intent, that he was happy to have restored Alien to a point where others could do great things with it. But the other, it's easy to understand why some would see this as Scott believing his vision was ultimately where the film series would find its future. Certainly what didn't help was that Ridley Scott was planning to call the sequel to Covenant Awakening, which it turned out was the same name that Blomkamp and Weaver had given when they were talking about Alien 5. This leads to a lot of confusion when he's talking about his Alien movie and Blomkamp's Alien movie by the same title. But it should be clarified that in Blomkamp's view, Scott never overtly sabotaged Alien 5, and that he even championed it initially. From all accounts, the idea seemed to have been exciting to everyone who heard about it, even Scott himself, at least at first. Alien 5, not the intended title, but just to keep it distinct from Ridley Scott's Paradise Lost/Covenant project, it was to ignore all the films set after Aliens. Early reports reflected two possible scenarios, an immediately after and a decades later version. It seems the former were either rumors or what was meant to be a brief prelude, since the latter would allow for the actors to convincingly play the characters at their current age. It suggested this would be the Sulaco arriving at Gateway Station over Earth to make clear that they never crashed on that penal colony. Ripley would be the lead, but the idea was that she would be sort of mentoring the adult Newt in order to pass the torch to her. Weyland-Yutani finally obtained the derelict alien ship from LV-426, the spacecraft bearing the engineer's space jockey from Alien. While the alien nest at Hadley's Hope was destroyed in the nuclear explosion of the atmospheric processor's reactor, the eggs still on that ship would be safe at its original crash site. The company managed to secure and weaponize the derelict's biotechnology, unleashing a new wave of xenomorphic horrors in a secret research facility, which Ripley, Newt, and Hicks would infiltrate in order to avoid a large outbreak of the aliens. The xenomorph threat itself would expand beyond the familiar. Blomkamp's longtime fascination with blending biology and technology led to new creature designs, such as a four-armed xenomorph variant and an alien trematode, a, snake-like parasitic creature that could burrow into or otherwise attach to human hosts. One concept image showed a man standing over an open egg, frantically pulling a chestburster's tail out of his own abdomen, suggesting there were new kinds of facehugger infections and or chest bursting. Aiming to be far more than a fix-fic or over-budgeted fan film, the intention was to nevertheless deliver on the visceral body horror that the series was known for. Perhaps the most striking concept was Ripley's new combat gear suggested by some of the concept art. Ripley would don a biomechanical xenomorph-inspired suit to battle the alien queen, clearly inspired by her iconic power loader battle in Aliens. The concept art strongly suggests that the climax of the film would be Ripley fighting a monster by becoming a monster herself, so that she might lure the alien queen into range of heavy weaponry to eliminate the threat. A biomechanoid xenomorph queen suit was how it was described. By summer of 2015, Sigourney Weaver got Blomkamp's early draft of the script and loved it. He'd written a just-in-case version that didn't feature Ripley, but he had incorporated so many of the elements that Weaver thought were needed to give Ripley's arc a sense of being whole and complete that she not only was on board, she was a vocal champion. Her public comments showed genuine excitement at the prospect of returning to Ellen Ripley under Blomkamp's direction. Throughout 2015 and 2016, she gushed in interviews that his ideas were original and organic, and that working with someone as talented as Neil made her eager to reprise Ripley. At San Diego Comic-Con 2016, during Alien's 30th anniversary panel, Weaver assured Alien 5 was the sequel they'd been waiting for. It's an amazing script, and Neil and I are really excited about doing it. She even teased that Alien 5 would give the fans everything they're looking for, and be worth the wait. James Cameron also reacted positively, feeling protective of the characters that he'd created and endorsing the idea of Alien 5 ignoring Alien 3, having said killing them was a huge slap in the face of the fans. At that same Comic-Con panel, Cameron revealed that he also had read Blomkamp's script and loved it. He shared it with me, and I think it's a very strong script, and he can go make it tomorrow. Considering Cameron's personal high standards, calling someone else's screenplay very strong is high praise. For context, this was around the same time that during an interview, Cameron criticized aspects of The Force Awakens, that it was a retrench to things you had seen before and characters you had seen before. So it was clear the script was operating beyond nostalgia and retrenching in order to win Cameron's praise like this. Michael Biehn was another vocal supporter of this project. After Hicks' ignominious off-screen death, Biehn was thrilled at the chance to reprise the role. "They're planning on bringing me and Newt back," he told Icons of Fright. He believed Alien 5 was practically a sure thing after the public announcement. "I really think it would be embarrassing to Ridley and Fox and Sigourney if they just didn't make the movie," he said in November of 2015. Now, Carrie Henn, who aside of a lone voice role in 2020, never acted after Aliens, would obviously not be returning. Her role would be recast. But no idea who, despite the whirlwind of activity that was taking place behind the scenes. Throughout 2015, pre-production moved forward on Alien 5 while Scott concurrently developed Covenant. By July, Blomkamp had completed a first draft script and Fox was eyeing a 2017 release slot. The working title remained under wraps, though he hinted that it was being called Alien 5 to avoid being a spoiler, since the real title gives away too much, he said. Filming was scouted for Vancouver, and Blomkamp began teasing props like an upgraded pulse rifle on social media. However, September brought a major shift. Ridley Scott publicly stated that Covenant had taken priority, but assured fans both films will be made. Privately, Scott had been expressing reservations over the overlap. He questioned the logic of having two Alien narratives concurrently, and believed the priority should be continuing the origin storyline of the Xenomorphs and the android David, with Covenant and Covenant's sequel. The viral excitement of Alien 5 contrasted sharply with the public lamentation among fans of the series over Prometheus, even leading The Guardian to write of Covenant, quote, "There will be Xenomorphs this time, but you get the impression Scott only agreed to include the monstrous beasties as a result of the popularity surrounding Blomkamp's concept." It wasn't true, but you could see why Scott might have, on some level, felt that Alien 5 risked undermining his Prometheus arc. That if it overperformed while Covenant underperformed, his storyline could be killed. On October 30th, 2015, Blomkamp announced that Alien 5 was holding, pending Prometheus 2, and that he'd be working on other projects in the interim. But he and Weaver both remained optimistic. In April of 2016, Weaver revealed that Ridley asked Neil not to make our Alien till after Prometheus 2. He wanted his movie to shoot and be released first. She reassured fans that this script was amazing and that the wait would be worth it. To commemorate Alien Day, April 26th of 2016, Blomkamp even shared new concept art of the adult Newt, signaling that he hadn't given up. Michael Biehn added details about Newt, and how she would provide a new beating heart for the Alien series, that the film was still going ahead, they just needed to wait for Covenant to go out the door first. While on the break, Weaver worked with James Cameron on sequels to Avatar, which some rumors claim contributed to scheduling complications over Alien 5. But Weaver insisted, and still maintains, she would have made room to work on Alien 5 the moment it would get the go-ahead. It just wasn't to be. As filming continued on Covenant, Ridley Scott asked the Fox executives why they really needed another Alien film. Intentional or not on his part, the timing of the question was bad. Chappie had done poorly with both critics and audiences, which made Scott's question contribute to their own doubts. Never mind the fact that Scott's own The Counselor, which 20th Century Fox released after Prometheus, also did poorly with critics and audiences. But Scott's question, whatever his intent, gave executives who had misgivings about Blomkamp in the wake of Chappie cover in order to put Alien 5 on indefinite hold. Biehn was given what he called go-away money as a result, a satisfactory payday for ultimately doing nothing, he noted, but unsatisfactory in resolving the fate of his screen counterpart. Weaver at least had some interpretation of an artistic end for Ripley, even though it wasn't where she'd like to have left it. But it seemed like Fox had decided to go all in on Alien Covenant and see what the results said about the future of the series. As mentioned, Covenant didn't do as well as Prometheus at the box office. But Ridley Scott was already mentally preparing for the intended sequel, Awakening. There's a little confusion, as he once said the order would be Prometheus, Awakening, Covenant, but this public statement seems to have just been him misspeaking, as it contradicts other points elsewhere. John Logan was already working on the story for Awakening, and what we've learned about it suggests the following four intentions. 1. David's deadly journey continues. The sequel would center on Michael Fassbender's David after he hijacks the colony ship USCSS Covenant and his 2,000 human colonists and embryos. He sets course for the colonists' destination, Origai 6, while secretly harboring 2 xenomorph facehugger embryos. On the Covenant Blu-ray, a short film called Advent includes David's thoughts on his creation, that it would rule the entire galaxy, and implies that Daniels, Catherine Waterston's character, would become the first alien queen. 2. Return of the Engineers. In mid-2017 interviews, Scott revealed that all the engineers were not killed off in Covenant, and that, quote, there will be 3 or 4 different players coming in to investigate, one of which will be the engineers arriving back to find their planet decimated. He described the engineers as the gardeners of space, who periodically visit their seeded worlds. The implication is that a group of engineer survivors would discover the catastrophe David wrought upon their civilization and come seeking revenge. 3. Xenomorphs and new monsters. While Scott became increasingly fascinated by AI and philosophical questions on creation, he acknowledged that the alien titular creature needed a role. Early on, he planned for Awakening to feature some form of the xenomorph or his predecessors. Scott said the evolution of the creature might be nearly over, but that the focus could shift to what comes next, possibly new forms of life engineered by David. He teased that the world that the AI might create as a leader if he finds himself on a new planet was a key story idea, indicating David could establish a colony of creatures or AI on Origai 6. Thus, while the classic alien would appear, Scott hinted the emphasis would be on artificial life and the bigger ideas of creation, though fans could expect some sort of creepy xenomorph and a whole lot of death and destruction, as Slash Films Riley noted. 4. Bridge to the original Alien. Scott consistently said that his next prequel would move closer to the timeline of the original film. The end goal was to answer how the deadly creatures and the derelict engineer ship full of the eggs wound up on LV-426 for the Nostromo crew to find. Scott stated the sequel will complete the prequel series, leading directly into the events of Alien. Scott even mused about a connection to Ellen Ripley. Quote, Ripley's going to be somebody's daughter, obviously. He was implying that a younger version of Ripley or her lineage could theoretically appear by the end of the prequel saga. He clarified in 2017 that Ripley herself was 2 films out from being directly involved, meaning not until the very end of the prequel series. However, Stacy Snyder, Fox CEO at the time, admitted publicly that Alien Covenant's results failed to live up to their expectations. They still had faith in the film, she said, but that's when the aforementioned Disney, that had been gobbling up IP, arrived at 21st Century Fox, announcing their intent to purchase parts of it. If the name there confused you, it comes down to one of the recurring themes we've run into so many times when we do these deep dives: complex corporate hoedowns. You can stop here if you're not interested, but if you want yet another ride that would make Mr. Toad go bug-eyed, buckle up. Almost 90 years ago, 20th Century Pictures and Fox Film Corp merged into 20th Century Fox. It was one of the Big Five studios, a pillar of Hollywood, that was later bought in 1981 by Denver oil tycoon Marvin Davis, a 6'4" giant who once greeted George Lucas with a boisterous "Georgie!" and picked him up off the floor with a bear hug. He notoriously made a deal related to Star Wars with Lucas that was cemented by a keyman clause. That is, it lasts only as long as Davis owned the company, which only lasted until 1984. Rupert Murdoch was folding a number of entertainment and news properties together, including Roger Corman's New World and 20th Century Fox. Fox has a significant television production company, remember. Murdoch's News Corporation, creatively called News Corporation, Frankensteined all these different things together to create an American media empire, with 20th Century Fox Studios making films, a new Fox network on television, Fox Sports, cable channels FX and National Geographic, and others, including eventually its news channel, of course. And in 2013, print media was struggling. I read that on the internet. Murdoch insulated the entertainment part of the company from that by splitting News Corporation into News Corp and 21st Century Fox. It was at the end of 2017 that Disney announced its intent to buy up the shares of 21st Century Fox, the part divorced from Murdoch's publishing interests. Now, this quickly led to a bidding war with Comcast, but Murdoch was actually favoring Disney over them for reasons that nobody quite understood. It's been asserted that it might be down to the negotiations where there were questions about the Murdoch family trust shares, where Rupert's family would be getting preferential terms. In fact, this led to lawsuits by investors claiming the Murdochs were securing a really sweetheart of a deal in all of this, leading to the kind of dynastic drama that you would expect from Succession. So Disney was prevailing, but you might have noticed it's been vacuuming up various properties. They acquired Maker Studios a few years earlier than this, parent company to Blip, as part of an effort to expand into the new medium that audiences were shifting into, which, considering you're watching this on Google's YouTube, should tell you how well that worked out. Disney had to now be careful to avoid running afoul of antitrust laws, of having too much control over media. In fact, this was so diverse, there was a chance the entire thing could get ruined because of foreign soccer rights. How? Let's keep going. See, Disney owned ESPN. Well, 21st Century Fox had all of these different sports-related things itself. In order to be able to go through with the deal, Fox was going to need to divest 22 Fox sports stations in order to satisfy the U.S. Department of Justice. Otherwise, Disney could wind up with some kind of sports media monopoly. For this exact same reason, they would have to sell Fox Sports Mexico in order to satisfy Mexico's Federal Economic Competition Commission, and Fox Sports Brazil to satisfy Brazil's CADE. But it doesn't end there. To satisfy the European Commission, Disney had to sell its factual television channels in Europe, such as History, H2, Crime and Investigation, Blaze, and Lifetime, because Disney and Fox both own strong documentary lifestyle networks, and God knows you don't want Disney to have a monopoly on Lifetime. Then we get into China. China, which had previously blocked the purchase of Time Warner by AT&T, actually rubber-stamped the deal. The reason for that? They were right smack in the middle of tense negotiations with the Trump administration over trade matters with the United States, and they were signaling their desire to remain an attractive market and partner for American media companies, especially given that Disney was in pre-production on the live-action Mulan, and a strong Sino-Disney partnership would benefit the CCP and the mouse. Yes, by now the oil tycoon bear-hugging George Lucas seems rather mundane, doesn't it? So, with all the red tape passed through, in the aftermath, Rupert Murdoch's Fox Corporation got Fox Broadcasting Company, Fox Television Stations, Fox News Channel, Fox Business Channel, Fox Sports 1 and 2, Fox Deportes, and a minority stake in Big Ten Network, while Disney got 20th Century Fox Television and Fox 21 Television Studios, folded into Disney Television Studios, Fox Searchlight Pictures, which was renamed to Searchlight Pictures, and 20th Century Fox Film Studio, which was renamed to 20th Century Studios. Plus, they got Fox's 30% share of Hulu, which gave Disney at the time 60%. It's gone up since then. Most importantly, they got Fox's entire library, from MASH to The Simpsons, from Rock Hudson's Battle Hymn to Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Disney owned it all. They owned the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Congratulations. This also meant that they were in control of the Alien IP now. So Weyland-Yutani, Disney, now being this entertainment megacorporation, had projects of their own in the works, and now had hard R genre pictures that were quickly being put on an indefinite hold while they figured out what to do with them all. When it came to Alien, Fox had already put Awakening on hold the moment that Disney expressed interest, though whether or not that was causal or coincidence is open to debate. Regardless, Ridley Scott had problems of his own to worry about. In the midst of Fox and Disney feeling each other out about this deal, he was working on a film called, of all possible titles, All the Money in the World. Why was Scott having such a problem with this film at the time? Well, it was because a major part of the film was Kevin Spacey, right at the time when the allegations of sexual misconduct against him turned his name to mud. There was no way they could release a Kevin Spacey film in this moment. As a result, while all that Disney drama was happening, Ridley Scott was busy trying to reshoot all of Kevin Spacey's scenes with Christopher Plummer instead. Then when that was finally out the door, he moved on to his next film, the final one from this Fox-Disney transition, called The Last Duel. Critically acclaimed but bombed at the box office, leading to Scott hilariously issuing an old man ramble about millennials who don't want to learn anything unless it comes from a cell phone. In the end, the new owners decided not to revive Awakening, but they assured the world that they hadn't gone into this deal with their eyes closed. They were now owners of things from Die Hard, the only Christmas movie whose most famous quote includes an F-bomb, to Ryan Reynolds' beloved Deadpool and Hugh Jackman's final X-Men tie-in, the R-rated Logan, the stylish and witty Kingsman, and of course, Alien and Predator. They didn't buy them just to throw them away, as the Reynolds-Jackman team-up film and the Kingsman prequel films both made clear. And Alien, they insisted, was no exception. The question now was, what would Alien become under Disney?